Okay, welcome to Security Trends and Malware Analysis. My name is Emmett Gray. I'm going to be your instructor, and this is just a short introduction to the course. So, welcome! I try to make this kind of fun and entertaining. I think you'll have a good time. There's an awful lot of stuff in here you probably have never even heard of before. So this does provide you everything you need to know to be able to defend yourself against malware attacks. And every single class period there's going to be some hands-on component where I'm going to ask you to run some tool or install something or analyze a file. And yeah, it is somewhat in-depth. There's an awful lot of stuff to cover, but I'm not really into details, memorizing a bunch of stuff. I'm more into, concepts and philosophies and why are we doing this and how come this technique works and this one doesn't, that kind of stuff. So this is a traditional face-to-face class. Yes, a lot of people think this is a fun course. You learn an awful lot of weird stuff and you get to play with a bunch of weird tools. Now, unfortunately, any type of class that teaches you how malware works can inadvertently be used to figure out how to create malware. So yes, I'm going to have you sign some sort of a release that basically says that you won't use the information you have here to go to the dark side. The textbook, halfway decent textbook, we're going to go through all of it, but about 20% of the material presented is not from the book, so you really do have to pay attention. Okay, so this is a lecture-heavy course. I like to tell stories. I like to embellish an awful lot of the stuff that goes on in the textbook. And I will tell you that quizzes and assignments are usually, quite often based upon things that were said and done in lecture, not stuff solely from the book. Okay, that's going to be important. And there's very few, if any, PowerPoint slides. In fact, this probably is the last PowerPoint you'll see. Anyway, that means you can't really skip a class. I mean, you have to physically be there. You have to pay attention. And particularly when it comes to telling stories, you're going to have to be taking notes. Yeah. Okay. So the requirements for the course. Everything is done in Canvas. That's fairly obvious. You need access to a decent computer at home. I would strongly recommend a Windows-based computer with at least, Windows 10 or 11. We do have that in the classroom, and we do have computers like in the library that you can use. You also need a reliable internet connection because it would be really bad to be in the middle of a quiz and lose power or lose internet or something like that. That would be pretty bad. Now, yeah, you are going to have an honest-to-God real Windows-based machine, not one of the cut-down Copilot things. No, that's not going to work. You're not going to be able to do it from a Mac. You're going to need an honest-to-God real Windows-based machine. Now, there's an awful lot of stuff here that can help you if you don't have one of these at home. Well, first of all, you can always go to the classroom or go to the university library. But if you have a Mac, if you have an older-based Mac, then you can use something called Parallels or VirtualBox. If you have a newer-based Mac, you can use the UTM. And if all else fails, you can build a Windows-based computer in the cloud using Azure. Students have free access to Azure. And so yes, we are going to be installing Windows 10. So yeah, we're going to need to do all that stuff. So in order to install Windows 10, you need an account that will allow you to download a version of Windows 10. So this thing called Azure Dev Tools for Teaching, that's got to be a horrible name, but hey, you sign into this thing, and it'll allow you to download what's called an ISO file, which is like an image of a CD-ROM, and plus an activation key. And so we're going to do this all in class. I mean, you don't have to do this in advance. So we're going to do all that stuff. We do have instructions and supplemental materials. And be ready to rock and roll when the time comes. So hardware. If you bring your own laptop to school every single day, no problems at all. But if you don't have a laptop, and let's say you have a desktop machine, and you want to transfer your files back and forth between the two machines, you're probably going to need a USB-based hard drive. Pretty good size. Because these virtual machines could get pretty good size. So again, an external drive, and okay, let's say you maybe have a decent laptop, but you're running kind of low on disk space. Well, then an external USB drive is probably a good idea anyway. So you can buy one of those things pretty cheap, or we have a few that we can lend you if you absolutely needed to. Okay, so what are your expectations? You're going to learn an awful lot about the design part. You know, the thinking of a malware writer is kind of a theme behind this. You're going to know an awful lot about the inner workings of the computer, because in order to understand how the virus works, you need to understand how the computer works. You know, how do you put something in to start automatically, that kind of thing. And then you're going to use your knowledge and theory by finding and analyzing malware threats. So you really don't need to be a computer expert to do well in this course, but quite frankly, it would be handy. And we're not doing any programming, although occasionally programming topics come up, but I kind of just, you know, wave of the hand kind of a thing, saying, well, you know, you guys don't need to understand how it works, but let me just show you this, that kind of stuff. Okay, so 13 chapters in the book, so we basically cover them all. So I show this at the beginning of every class. It basically is, it's to understand how I think, and so understand, you know, there's no misunderstanding on what's going on here. So here goes. In grade school, it was perfectly okay for you to, you know, memorize multiplication tables and memorize state capitals and those kinds of things. But we're not in grade school anymore. We're in college. So instead of memorizing stuff, I want you to implement, solve, use, demonstrate. I want you to be in the green area where you organize, relate, compare, contrast, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, test, those kinds of things. So you're not going to get a test question that says, what's the definition of this term? You know, because like any student, I would have copied the term, thrown it into Google, and whatever the heck Google would spit out, I'd copy and paste in the answer box and move to the next question. That's not learning. That I mean, if the class was about Google skills, that might be appropriate, but not here. So I'm asking questions like, you know, why do you use this versus that? And it's like, man, you can't Google that. You have to understand the why. So the difference of what and why. So what is, you know, what's the capital of South Dakota? And quite frankly, the answer, in my opinion, is I don't know. I'll look it up. I mean, everyone has a phone, for God's sake. So, you know, consider a work environment where you have a cube farm, you know, rows and rows and rows of people in an open bullpen area, all separated by cubes. If you go look on the wall in their cubes, they're going to have little cheat sheets for whatever job they're doing. You know, if you're a database person, you're going to have SQL cheat sheets. If you're a programmer, you're going to have coding cheat sheets. So if it's perfectly okay to have a cheat sheet handy while you're at work, well, then why can't you have a cheat sheet handy while you're in school? So yeah, cheat sheets are perfectly okay, because I don't want you to spend any brain power on memorizing stuff. That's just not right. I'd much rather have you remember a story or remember a reason why, because those things are important. Those are the things that get you out of trouble. Those are the things that, why do I pick this one? And what are the long-term effects if I do that? Those are very, very good stuff. Okay, so what versus why? So course requirements is going to be 2 major exams, a midterm and a final, conducted in the classroom. There's going to be a review session, an entire, you know, week 8 and week 16, no lecture whatsoever. We'll just do a review, and then the next time we'll do the test. 6 take-home quizzes, 6 assignments, and a term project. Term project's pretty cool. I basically you get an infected system, and you have to go figure out absolutely everything about it, how to decrypt the information, and, you know, find out where the data goes and all that stuff. So anyway, percent of grades, 2 exams that are 12.5 points apiece, 6 quizzes at 5 points apiece, 6 assignments at 5 points each, and the term project is a whopping 15%. So yeah, you can't like blow that off, because that's like 1.5 letter grades right there. Okay, so here's the schedule. Now this is kind of an eye chart, so don't bother to try to read it all. But the point of this is there's something is due every single Thursday. Okay, so you don't have to think. You just say, hey, wait, is today Thursday? Yeah, well then something is due on Thursday. Absolutely every single Thursday. It's either a quiz or an assignment quiz. So it just switches back in between quiz, assignment, quiz, assignment, quiz, assignment, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so how much work is this going to be? I'm expecting about maybe 1.5, 2 hours maybe per week outside of the classroom. It is somewhat fast-paced. We do about 1 chapter a week. There's a lot of stuff to cover, but again, I'm not into details. So either a quiz or assignment is due every single week. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the quizzes and exams in more detail. So the midterm and the final are going to be done in the classroom, closed book, closed notes, closed everything. 25 questions plus 2 extra credit, and an hour and 15 minutes. And I mentioned there'll be an entire day where we do nothing but just go over the topics that are probably appear in the exam. The quizzes are take home, so they're open book, open everything. And then the lecture notes. And so I prepare like a kind of like a script of the things I'm getting ready to cover. You know, I want to make sure that I cover everything in the right order, don't skip anything, and make sure it kind of ties back with the book. So when it comes time to create the quizzes, I don't look at the textbook at all. I look at my lecture notes. So I'm looking at my lecture notes going, ooh, this would be a very good question because it tells me they understand. And ooh, here's another one that tells me that they understand. So if I'm looking at the lecture notes to write the quizzes, do you think it might be a good idea for you to be looking at those very same lecture notes before and during the quiz? Yeah, that might be smart, wouldn't it? Okay. All right. So assignments, reading comprehension. You'd be surprised. Well, maybe you wouldn't. I'll have an assignment that says, do the following 3 things. And somebody will turn in a paper saying, here are the 2 things that you asked me to do. And I'm going, no. I asked you for 3 things. Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. Typically, you're turning in a Word document. Later on, you can be a Word document with a bunch of screenshots from your machine showing that you did what it is you're supposed to do. I have a standard file naming convention. It goes like this. It's the CIS4348 space, whatever you're turning in, assignment 1, 2, or 3, space, last name, dot, first name. So that's 2 and exactly 2 spaces. All right, nod your head like you heard me, okay? By the way, when it comes time for you to submit your very first assignment, I'm going to be able to tell whether or not you can read and follow instructions almost immediately by looking at, did you follow the rules for the naming convention? It's going to be so easy to tell if you can read and follow instructions. By the way, reading and following instructions is probably a pretty doggone important skill for no matter what job you're in, right? Okay. Obviously, we're submitting Canvas only. And yes, you can submit it multiple times. You can submit something, I'll grade it, and you can resubmit it over again. Yeah, even after I've graded it. Yeah. And then do your own work. Don't cheat, and we don't have any group projects. So let's talk about cheating for a minute. Paraphrasing and plagiarism. We have a plagiarism checking tool that's in place. Basically, you can't have more than 35% of your paper appear someplace else. So the rules for plagiarism are incredibly simple. Basically, you can summarize the rules in one sentence. Here goes. Don't use other people's words. That's it. That's the whole thing of plagiarism. You can't go up to a site, grab something, and paste it in your document. That's plagiarism. What you can do is paraphrase. You read the thing, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I think I got it. And you say, okay, what they really mean is, and then you turn to your document and you go, so you're putting it in your own words. You use the reference material, but you put it in your own words. That's paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is legal. Plagiarism is not. Okay. Hopefully, this is a senior level course, and so maybe after 3 years of college you've seen this, although I have been surprised. Anyway, there's a thing in supplemental materials called 10 types of plagiarism that might be helpful. Okay, so here's like a generic grading rubric. 20% is can you read and follow instructions? Yeah. 35% is did you learn what it is you're supposed to learn? Did it work? Did you use best practices to get there? And then speller grammating and formatting, I don't really care too much about that because this is not an English class. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark. I typically break up these videos into 15-minute chunks just to make it easier to digest. So I'll see you again in just a second.